Welcome to Scrollin', a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket.
I'm Devious.
This is episode number 70. Studio director Matt Firor, I've heard it both ways. He posted a forum discussion titled ESO PvP Update January 2022. If you want to see this discussion for yourself, you can go to forums.elderscrollsonline.com, click on the dev tracker link at the very top, and just look for Matt's most recent post, and that should be it.
A little hidden for him.
Yeah, it is. And that's actually kind of a point worth noting, is that this is something that it was really just posted on the official forums, and it's not like a press release or some big communication to the public at large. It's really addressing the existing kind of more dedicated community, which I think is always cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And especially coming from Matt Firor. I mean, he's the studio director, aka president of ZeniMax Online Studios. You know, he's like the big kahuna.
Pretty high up.
Yeah, kind of a big deal. So if he's addressing the community, in particular the PvP community, I definitely want to perk my ears up and hear what he has to say. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of do some bullet points here and sort of paraphrase what he's saying here, but I do recommend going to the forums and reading it for yourself, and just reading the discussion that's prompted thereafter, like what all the other people are saying. There's pages and pages and pages of people responding to this very positively. He starts off by saying it's just long past time to give everyone an update on where they are with PvP improvements. He says they've been doing a lot of tests, a lot of data collection and that sort of thing, and long story short, they're planning to re-architect the server. Davius, you're an architect. What do you think that means? Yeah. Re-architect the server.
Whoa. Pretty wild statement. I mean, this whole statement kind of caught me off guard. I think it's cool. I think it's really neat. I mean, re-architect the server seems like pretty huge, right?
Yeah. Re-architect is a fancy word for sure. So he says basically it's a much more complex game than it was at release, and there's a lot more people playing and just a lot more systems going on. So they're basically just needing to rewrite a lot of the foundational code, which basically should dramatically improve server performance. So basically they're doing it. They're fixing the servers, guys, finally.
I mean, here's the thing. This is the most interesting part to this statement for me, is that this is not something that brings in new players. It's just not. I mean, this is something that is really only beneficial for old players like us, people who've been in the game, they're familiar with the game, you're familiar with all the random little hiccups or problem items. This is not something that you can like advertise like, hey, look at us, we're re-architecting the server and come play ESO. That's kind of the part that stands out to me the most. That, I mean, I think it's awesome. I think it's really, really cool. I think, maybe, we've talked about maybe they're kind of laying low as far as new content, new updates and things like that. And, they say they're spending a lot of time on this. So maybe this is kind of, they want to rebuild a stronger foundation before they start building on top of that foundation with new player attracting type items.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're probably getting to a point where they have no choice, right? It's either this or scrap PvP out of the game.
Yeah.
So he says that this is going to require that the entire game be retested and reevaluated. It's basically going to be like re-released all over again. And I think that's prompting a lot of people to speculate, like, is this basically going to amount to ESO 2? Is that what this is going to be? And I think we can probably safely assume that that's not what this is going to be. Davius, what do you think?
I don't think so either. I think the only thing I can imagine, and I'm probably wrong about this, but if I really had to guess, just like the biggest, wildest thing to come from this is maybe some sort of visual update. I think that would be the biggest thing. That's something I'm not expecting, but outside of that, I think it's exactly just going to be they're addressing all of these minor issues that we deal with. You're in PvP, you hit your ultimate doesn't go off. You're
Trying to break free and it doesn't work.
Trying to break free doesn't work. You try to queue up with a buddy and one of you gets into a group BG, one of you doesn't. I think that these are just, everybody who plays the game is aware of all of these little minor issues. And I think the realistic expectation from this is that it's focusing on all of those minor issues. You know, it's an older game now. I mean, this game's got some gray hairs. And so
2014, I think is when it hit beta.
Yeah. Right? And so I think really what this is that they're taking all of that 2014, 2015, 2016 data and making it mesh better with 2019, 2020, 2021 data.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think once this work is all done, we're going to log in and it's going to be the exact same game that we've been playing all along, you know. But it's probably just going to run better. And in particular, hopefully we'll be able to go to Cyrodiil and the game will function properly. You know, that would be, I think that's the main like area of concern. I mean, even in Battlegrounds, performance is pretty good in Battlegrounds, but even there we run into problems. But Cyrodiil is literally not playable a lot of the time. And I really like Cyrodiil quite a bit, and I would like to spend more time there, but I have totally given up on it until it's just in a better state. Anyway, we don't need a rant about Cyrodiil. Hopefully Cyrodiil is just going to be more fun once this is all done.
There we go.
And you made a great point that these are development resources that are not going into an expansion or into the Crown Store or into something that's going to, you know, bring in more players or I guess theoretically this could increase revenue down the line, but it's a more long-term kind of view of things. And you know, like we were just saying, this is a forum post. This isn't a press release to the general public. They are addressing a dedicated player base. Like the forums, not anyone can just jump on the forums and participate. You have to request an invite. You have to have an ESO account. You know, so most of the people there are fairly dedicated players. And so for that to be like where this communication is located, you know, I think is a pretty cool thing and a pretty significant thing as well.
Yeah.
So he said this is going to be much of the focus in 2022. They're not going to rush it. In the meantime, they're considering new ways to keep Cyrodiil and Battlegrounds interesting. So for example, they're going to try like special rule sets and weekend events. That's really interesting sounding. But they won't be adding any new features to PvP until this work is complete, because that would prolong the fixes they're trying to make, plus make the current performance situation even worse than it is.
The weekend events has me really intrigued. I'm sure it does you too, because, you know, we talked about it. We've got some struggles with the deathmatch going away. But if we're talking about, you know, common weekend events or common events where it's like, hey, this is a deathmatch only weekend, I think that's a real possibility. I think it'd be pretty easy for them. And that would be really exciting for players like us, you know. I do think it'd be cool if they had, you know, more detailed rules. I don't see that happening because, as you just said, they're not making changes. They're just going to have events to maybe keep things a little bit more interesting. But, you know, I think that those kind of themed weekends could be really cool. I think it could bring attention to it. You know, the Mayhem, or what's it called now? White Strikes
Mayhem, I think.
Mayhem. You know, that's a fun event. I think a lot of PvP players enjoy that event. It brings a lot of attention to PvP. If we're seeing events like that where it's bringing people into PvP areas, I think that could be really cool. But I don't see anything crazy rule happening, like any specific rule sets, like a double, you know, all characters double stamina weekend or warden only weekend. I don't see anything like that happening.
Yeah, I wonder what they could mean by special rule sets, because I feel like your idea there of like weekend deathmatch only, that's plausible. I actually can very much see that happening. Yeah. But they say weekend events, and he does use the term special rule sets. That's got to mean something. You know, like what,
I don't know.
It could be
interesting. I will say that for the weight of the bad news that as PvP players we got, this was a much better week.
Yeah,
let's put it that
certainly.
way.
Probably related, those two things, I would say.
Yes.
Another promising thing about this here, he said we won't be adding any new features to PvP until the work is complete. To me, that implies that they are planning to add new PvP features after this work is complete, it's kind of implied by that statement there. And that's great news, because what's the last PvP content we got? It was in Morrowind with Battlegrounds.
Yes, exactly. It's obviously very exciting to hear that the possibility is they're going to add PvP, but
it's not abandoned. PvP is not abandoned. Hooray.
Yes. I mean, we're at a point where it's past due. There's just no other way to say it. So that is very, very exciting that's a possibility in the future for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like they do indeed have some kind of plans. His closing statement here, I'm just going to read this. He says, "We completely understand the frustration many of you are feeling, especially with lack of information about our PvP plans." There we go, PvP plans. "This was a huge decision to make, and we needed to make sure we had exhausted all other possibilities before announcing this. Thanks for bearing with us." You're welcome, Matt. So this is a great communication here, a great message. This is all fantastic news as PvP players, or even as like endgame people, like people who do a lot of 12-player trials and stuff like that are going to definitely be benefiting from this. Davis, you made an excellent point that the timing of this is definitely damage control, right? Like that's 100% what this is.
Exactly. It is.
They've had a bit of bad PR recently. If anyone listened to our last episode, we kind of went on and on about how these Battlegrounds queue changes that are coming up, where we're reverting back to having a random only queue, is basically a universally unpopular decision, right? Basically everyone hates that decision, whether you like deathmatch or not.
Yeah.
And there's also been a couple of mishaps on some live streams on Twitch. I won't mention any names, but there's been some members of, or basically a member of ZOS leadership have a couple of moments on stream where some fairly negative comments were directed at the PvP community in particular. And it definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. I think it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And just that combined with the unpopular Battlegrounds changes coming up, the PvP community is really just not happy at all right now, honestly. So
let's just say that Matt's a little bit better at PR than some others.
Yes, exactly. So, we're going to have like a reveal event here in a couple of days where we learn a lot about what's going to be happening this year content-wise. And this seems like something that maybe was planned to be talked about during that event. And they just decided to go ahead and communicate this stuff right now because of the bad PR that's going on. I would caution people to temper expectations. Promises have been made in the past, and it's questionable how successful they've been on reaching those goals. This does sound very promising. I'm choosing to be optimistic. I think, I believe that they really are going to be working towards this goal, and they're not just saying that. So hopefully it will have the results that we want. The responses from the community are very, very positive. I would say they range from cautiously optimistic to overwhelmingly positive.
Yes. Honestly, the responses are the ones that have me the most worried with the too much optimism. And I mean, it's kind of like, oh boy, like let's not get our hopes up so high that we're just guaranteed for disappointment here. But it's nice to see that level of optimism. I have to be honest. It's nice to see the positivity for sure.
Yeah, it is nice. And I think a lot of the positive comments that I've seen it's not necessarily even optimism. It's just like being very, very thankful for the communication in general. Just like, it's good we appreciate you letting us know what you're working on and what the plans are. Like we like that. So there's a lot of that. And there's like pages and pages and pages on this discussion of people just kind of raving about it. Also, ever since then, I've just noticed on the forums, there's a lot more responsiveness from the dev team just to the forum community in general. Like, there's someone that had an idea that posted a discussion about maybe have a story mode for dungeons. And there was another one where someone's had the idea of like incentivizing people to read more lore books and stuff like that, like giving you like a real reason to do that. And developers have commented on those threads and said, hey, that's a cool idea. I think I'm going to pass that along for further consideration. There's been a lot more of that kind of thing going on the forums. And plus Gina made a comment on an existing thread about communication. And she's basically saying they've been having a lot of internal conversations about how to improve their communication methods and that sort of thing. And so that stuff's really cool. I like to see that.
Yeah, that's a major reason for optimism right there, is that is really, really cool. That the open-mindedness in that regard of ideas and possibilities is always, I think, that is only going to lead to improvement.
So it's just neat to see that responsiveness. I hope it keeps up. I hope it's not just this kind of damage control phase and it'll fade out over time. That very well could happen, but it's nice to see it at least for now. In other news, the Deadric War Celebration Event is going on right now. It started last Thursday, January 20th, and is going through Tuesday, February 1st. So we got like another week or so left of this thing. So during this event, you can go to Vardenfell, Clockwork City, or Somerset. And any three of those zones, you basically can earn these reward boxes that we get for all these events, right? For just doing activities in those zones, like repeatable quests, killing bosses, looting chests, all that kind of stuff. You can also get double yields from harvest nodes. Bosses will drop extra loot. You can get tickets and spend those at the Impresario. It's a pretty basic event, just kind of a celebration of those DLCs, just to kind of revisit those. Have you been participating at all?
Well, so here's the thing. One, I'll say it kind of seems like the celebration of the pre-annual events.
Mm-hmm.
It's like here's all the stuff we used to do before we did the year of XYZ. And then secondly, here's the thing. This is solely my opinion. I could be completely wrong. You completely disagree with me. But at the exact same time, I'm going to tell you exactly what your priority needs to be in this event.
Okay.
You need to go get enough tickets and go and get the two-handed mace motif, the Evergloam champion two-handed mace. You got to get it. That style. That's a good two-handed mace. There's not very many great two-handed maces out there. That's a solid one.
Okay.
It's a good size. It's like large. It's it's aggressive looking.
A lot of the maces in this game just look like a carpenter's hammer. It's like...
Yeah, it's like you're running around like you're gonna hammer in some nails. It's just not. Yeah. So, but this one, it's good.
I haven't looked at it. I'll have to check that out. I haven't really been participating in this event other than like when I'm waiting in a Battlegrounds queue or something. I'll just go to Somerset and that'll be my running around zone while I'm waiting, because you get extra loot and stuff from harvest nodes and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of my way of celebrating. I just run around in that zone while I'm waiting in queue. That's about it.
Here's the weakness for me on this event. The real weakness for me is that it doesn't include any Nord zones.
Right.
My map doesn't quite extend to this area. So that's the real struggle for me. But
I don't know. I caught you in Deshaun the other day. So. You leave home once in a while.
Propaganda. It's propaganda. They've got that. The only, the student shrine. Every now and then I gotta go pay my respects to the student shrine. That's the only reason I go to that place.
Oh, that's understandable. It's a good reason. Another big piece of news is something we can't even really talk about because we're recording this 2 days before it happens. But basically, the day that this episode airs, there's going to be this reveal streaming event where we're going to learn all about what we're going to be getting this year in terms of content for the DLC and the chapter and all that stuff. We'll probably see, what if we're going to get a new skill line or whatever with the new chapter. I'm thinking probably not. Probably just going to be a couple new companions is going to be my guess. But I do hope that they surprise and delight us a bit on that. It would be really nice if they gave us a little something extra there. I'm sure there's going to be a surprise or two, surely, right? Got to be.
Yeah.
I bet they got at least a little something, like something on the level of like the armory system or something like that up their sleeve.
So the bar, I think we're both in agreement on this. The bar is 2 new companions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm curious. I want to ask you, if that's the bar, what is like 7, 8, 9 look like for you with this new expansion? Like what's going to get close to a 10 on your excitement level for this new year we're going into?
I think if they could give us something on the level of Psijic Order, I think a lot of people would be satisfied with that. And on top of all the performance stuff that they're talking about, and if they continue down with all the cool balance adjustments they've been making in terms of PvP combat and that sort of stuff. I think if we got something on the level of Psijic Order, like a combat relevant skill line, I don't think we could reasonably expect anything more than that. And even that I feel like is a
Sure.
reach.
Seems like a lot. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Probably 2 new companions and like one little surprise. Probably not quite on the level.
Some quality of life type situation.
I bet so. That's my prediction. I hope I'm surprised though. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that on Thursday. Probably people who are listening to this right now already have seen the event and know exactly what's going on. So I want to talk about a few pieces of gear that have been on my radar the last couple of weeks. Number one is the Markyn Ring of Majesty. That's one of the new mythic items. This is the one that gives you a stack of 100 weapon and spell damage and 1157 armor for every 3-piece set you're wearing, and 5-piece sets count as well, right? Like the 3 pieces. Yep. We talked about this a little bit when it first showed up in the patch notes, and we were talking about, okay, I could see it could be kind of cool if you cheese those stacks, and basically you could have a maximum of 3 stacks. So that would give you 300 weapon and spell damage and 3,000 something armor, which seems okay. Seems all right. But I've been seeing more and more people talk about this mythic item in my PvP guilds and stuff, and this seems to be the mythic, like the go-to mythic item that a lot of people are using in their PvP builds. And so I've been asking around to see like what kinds of sets people are using with this, and it turns out that most people are just using it in like a typical setup with like 2 5-piece sets, or basically only getting 2 stacks out of the Markyn Ring. The way it's been explained to me is, if you're getting 2 stacks out of it, you're getting 200 weapon and spell damage and like 2,300 armor, which those aren't astronomical numbers, but it's a decent amount of damage. And like compared to Malakath, like Malakath would give you more average DPS, but Markyn is giving you some extra damage, plus you can still crit. And that's pretty valuable, especially like if you're going up against really tanky players. Like you might not be able to wear them down with Malakath, but if you get lucky with a couple of really good crit spikes, you might be able to take them out. So just having that little extra dash of stats, it's not something that's overpowered in any way. It's just like a well-balanced item. If you just need that one extra little piece to fit into your build, this is one single item you can put in there to give you a nice amount of damage, a nice amount of resistance, just to kind of round out that stat sheet a little more. And there's no penalties whatsoever. You just get those stats and that's it.
The thing that really stood out to me, when this first came out, we just looked straight at that weapon and spell damage. But I think me personally, I kind of overlooked the armor. I didn't really think about, all right, you're getting the weapon and spell damage with a little bit of armor. And so, like you said, it really just comes down to a nice amount of stats for one item. And so you got one item and you're getting a nice little boost of stats out of that one item. Yeah,
it's just a nice little extra dash of stats. And that's not even counting like the glyph that you'll have on that ring and the trait that you're using on that ring. There's still kind of a lot of room to make that one single item give you a lot of value. So I think this is kind of replacing Malakath on a lot of builds.
Yeah.
Also just wanted to mention the Gaze of Sithis, mythic helmet again. I know I mentioned it on the last episode. I've been using it on my MagBlade. I'm just in love with this thing, man. It's such a good item. It gives you 3,000 health, 1,000 health recovery, which is 500 in PvP, and 4,000 armor, but it also reduces your block mitigation to 0. So if you're on a build that doesn't really need to block all that much, man, that's just a ton of value that one item is giving you. Like that's Nightblades, Sorcerers, and Werewolves in my mind. But even like Davis, you're MagCro healer, you've kind of got that build where you don't really need to block that much either, and you're finding a lot of value too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's about max stats and health recovery on that build. It's got a whole bunch of max health and a crazy amount of health recovery. And so it's kind of about just truly taking the damage and taking it out. And this is the perfect piece for that build. Just what I was saying about the Markyn Ring, about being kind of, a lot of stats out of one item. This is the king of a lot of stats out of one item.
Yeah.
And really, we've talked about this. This one's kind of flying under the radar a little bit for the amount of stats. And I think it's because, when you see that block mitigation to 0, That's a real scary number to see. But the amount of stats that this is giving you just far outweighs that block mitigation. Depending on the character, there's definitely characters you could throw this on that it wouldn't work, but you get this on the right type of build or the right type of setup, or you build the character to make this work. And man, this is just giving you an immense amount of stats for one item.
Yeah, and like a really good example is our good buddy Uncle Sam. Shout out to Uncle Sam. He uses this this item on his Magicka Sorcerer, and I've been playing a lot with my MagBlade lately, and my big opening move if I'm trying to kill somebody is I'll go into stealth, I do a fully charged heavy attack into a merciless resolve bow proc. And I really like targeting sorcerers with that because they're always really squishy, and I almost always get them into execute range just with that alone, and then it's just a matter of executing. But with Sam, that does not get him into execute range. Like I'll do that heavy attack into my merciless, and he's missing maybe half of his health bar. And at first I was like, oh man, he's got his shields up. I'm not getting through his shields. But it turns out he does not use shields on his sorcerer at all. And it's actually a pretty squishy build other than having Gaze of Sithis. So it's just Sithis saving him there. Really, really great item. If you've been overlooking it, give it another look.
Yeah, it's a great item.
Another set that I'm not feeling so good about, but it's definitely been on my radar quite a bit lately. This set, Rush of Agony. We talked about it a little bit when it first appeared in the patch notes, and we kind of predicted like this set's going to be a problem. And I'm actually surprised that it's just now getting to that point. It's been quite a while, but it's definitely picking up in popularity, and I'm not happy about it. So this is the set where when you deal damage basically with any gap closer, it's going to pull all enemies within 10 meters in towards you. And then it deals burst damage after 2 seconds, and then it has an 8-second cooldown. But the kicker is, when it pulls you in, it does not give you CC immunity. So you can still be pulled again, or you can be stunned after that. And that's the real problem with this set. What I've been seeing basically is Stamina Necromancers use this set. This, along with Dark Convergence, seems to be the setup. I'm actually surprised. Honestly, as soon as I saw this set show up, I felt like, oh, that's what everyone's going to do, or a lot of people are, because it's just too trolly. It is incredibly effective. So what they're doing is they're using the two-handed gap closer, Stampede. So Stampede is a gap closer, so it procs Rush of Agony, and it also leaves an effect on the ground, which means it procs Dark Convergence. So that one ability procs both of these sets. And so Rush of Agony is going to pull you in, but not give you CC immunity. So then you dodge away to get away, and then Dark Convergence pulls you back in, plus stuns you. So you're actually, the CC rules are getting broken twice, right? Yeah. Dark Convergence doesn't give you CC immunity, and then Rush of Agony doesn't give you CC immunity, and then Dark Convergence, after it pulls you in, you're supposed to be CC immune right there, according to the rules, but no, it goes ahead and stuns you then as well. So you basically have 3 entire seconds where you have absolutely no control over your character. 3 seconds where you can just put your hands off the keyboard. You can't do anything until those 3 seconds are over. And during that time, of course, it's a Necromancer, so that big Hulk Smash ultimate is going off. They have a Graveyard Synergy hitting you. They have a Blast Bones hitting you. You know, all that stuff can easily happen within 3 seconds, and you have no counter whatsoever. I was in a battleground with someone that was very good at using this setup, which they don't have to really be very good. It was guaranteed death every time. If I get pulled in by that Rush of Agony, there is no hope of survival. You are going to die. It's so incredibly frustrating because, you know, Dark Convergence has that delay. It pulls you after, I think, 2 seconds. So Rush of Agony pulls you right away. You dodge away. Dark Convergence pulls you again, stuns you, deals damage. Plus the damage from Rush of Agony, plus the damage from Dark Convergence itself, you know, on top of the ultimate, the Graveyard, the Blast Bones. It's just this gigantic bomb that there's no hope of escaping.
Well, and you just feel like you're just getting yanked all over the map. You just feel like you're constantly just getting pulled and yanked.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like I said, it's starting to pick up in popularity. I'm seeing more and more people use that Rush of Agony set. Even if they're not pairing it with Dark Convergence, I've seen some people just using it on its own. I feel like the exception to CC immunity there has to go. Like, that just needs to be taken out of the set. That pull-in is valuable enough on its own, you know?
I just can't ever imagine where no CC immunity is ever a good idea for anything. Like, it's the CC immunity is built in for a reason, and anything that's breaking that, just, I can't imagine that ever being a good idea.
And players have a hard enough time kind of wrapping their minds around the CC system as it is, especially newer people to PvP. I see people all the time standing there immobilized, but they're spamming bash over and over again because they think that's how you break out of an immobilize. You know, like, people get confused all the time as it is. Plus we have these exceptions to the CC system. Like, what hope do they have of figuring it out on their own, you know, without like Googling something or whatever?
Yeah.
Really dumb. I hate the set. I hate it. I hope it gets deleted.
Tell us how you really feel about the Rush of Agony set.
Yeah. Stupid.
And Dark Convergence. Gosh, those Dark Convergence is still on our bad list.
It's still a pest. I feel like I'm kind of right on the edge of like being okay with Dark Convergence as far as like how often I'm seeing it right now. And as long as it's not paired,
well, guess what? It's not for long.
Yeah. As long as it's not paired with Rush of Agony, I'm often able to avoid it and deal with it. But yeah, you're totally right. Its popularity is about to pick up because it turns out, if you didn't know, I didn't know this until just a few days ago, Dark Convergence has been bugged this entire patch. So the damage scaling that it's supposed to get with like the increased damage based on how many players it hits, that hasn't been happening this whole patch. It's been bugged so that it deals the exact same amount of damage, whether it's 1 player or 10 players or whatever. So they've identified that bug and are planning to fix it with this next update, which effectively means it's getting majorly buffed.
Yes. And if you've listened before, a buff is not quite what we've been hoping for with the old Dark Convergence.
And right now, it's already a popular set, and people are not using it for the damage at all. But now, the damage is actually going to be good. And like we were just saying, if you pair this with Rush of Agony, that damage is basically guaranteed to get applied. And think about it, you're going to get that scaling every single time. You're going to hit 10 targets every single time if that's your setup. Like, think about, you go up to a big fight just with Stampede, gap close into that fight, every single one of those players is a goner.
And that's the thing with Dark Convergence is that right now the damage is basically nothing. I mean, let's be honest. Very rarely are you dying from a Dark Convergence. Right. But the power in the set is the massive crowd control situation that it creates. And it's such a powerful crowd control that it is still a very powerful set because it's paired with other things. And so the idea that it's about to start doing crazy more damage on top of this is worrisome, to say the least.
Dr. Professor, I don't know if you were saying that in response to Rush of Agony and Dark Convergence. You're saying need to start wearing snow treaders. Snow treaders are awesome. I love snow treaders, but that's not going to help you with this situation because the snow treaders makes you immune to snares and immobilizations, but not stuns and pulls. And it doesn't make you immune to hard CC. And this is all hard CC that we're talking about here. So not even the snow treaders can save you.
not even the snow treaders can save you.
Dr. Frizzler says, well, perfect.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't have said it better, Dr. Professor.
So yeah, that's what I keep thinking of is Dark Convergence is actually going to be dealing good damage, and if you use it with Rush of Agony, that damage is guaranteed to hit every single time. And you're going to be able to pull in, 6 players, and guaranteed all 6 of those players are going to get hit. So I really hope they remove... Honestly, like Dark Convergence, they can do whatever they want to that right now. I feel like Rush of Agony is my main concern right now. I want them to remove that CC immunity.
Old Dark Convergence, that's still my old nemesis. There's nothing in a BG that creates instant frustration like seeing and hearing Dark Convergence go off.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be a well-placed one. It's just... I can see it, and it doesn't even have to hit me. I can see it going across the map, and it's just like this little inner frustration, like, oh, gosh.
I'm judging the player that's wearing that. So anyway, that's all the gear I wanted to talk about. As you might have guessed, we've been playing a lot of Battlegrounds. Davius, how have the BGs been going lately, man?
They're good right now. let's use it while we got it. How about that? That's what I'll say about BGs right now.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like right now, this patch is like the glory days of Battlegrounds, and I feel like I'm just soaking up as much as I possibly can while we can, because as soon as this next patch drops, we'll still have good combat balance, but we're gonna have a hard time actually getting into a death match, which is all we really want to do. So that's gonna be a real bummer. So I'm just trying to squeeze as much enjoyment as I can out of this good situation while we have it.
Yeah, we're about to go back into the days of BG team chat. It's gonna get real feisty.
Yeah,
and we every now and then we're gonna have relic matches where you're going to see 65 kills on one random player. Yeah. It's going to be that time again.
Mm-hmm. I'm not looking forward to it. I really hope they're able to alleviate some of that with those special rule sets and events and stuff like that. We'll see how far that goes. But I don't know if any of that is going to make me just not want to play deathmatch,
I just wish that we've talked about this back when we were in it. I just wish the deathmatch had at least a little bit more weight to it. If it was weighted a little bit, then it would be at least a little bit better.
They should weight it not by each game mode, but each category of game mode. Like deathmatch is its own category by itself, and then land grab is a category, and then flag games are a category. So you would have a 1 in 3 chance of getting deathmatch. That would be not a bad solution.
I could live with that.
Yeah, I've been noticing a trend of BowSorcs popping up in Battlegrounds here lately, and I think they're really cool. I think I'm going to try to make one for myself. So basically, it's a stamina sorcerer using a bow as their main ability, or as their main weapon. They're using Streak for the hard CC, of course. They're using Bombard for the AoE immobilize and snare. The ones I've seen are using Draining Shot, not Magnum Shot, but Draining Shot, the one that gives you a really strong snare. Because you already have a stun with Streak, so that would be kind of redundant if you used Magnum Shot.
Yeah.
And then they're using the Negate ultimate. So they're basically like CC machines plus Negate to help with those pushes. Plus they have a lot of damage. They can get kills as well. But it's really cool to watch them because they play in a very support kind of play style. Like they're not just going for kills or not trying to engage in like 1v1 fights. They really are kind of going after the whole group and just trying to make life miserable for everyone. Kind of a lot like how my MagPlar Despair plays, just kind of keeping everyone tied down all the time. Man, they can be really, really oppressive, and it also looks like a ton of fun just because StamCro's are freaking fun as it is.
Yeah. You had asked me about BGs, and one note that I will make is that the 3 things in BGs right now that stand out to me is CC, speed, as always, and the third one really right now that I see is range. Speed, and CC. Those 3 things are kind of king in BGs right now. You don't have to have them, but you better have at least one of those 3, or else it's going to be a real issue.
Uncle Sam, welcome to the chat. Didn't see you come in, man. Uncle Sam says, certainly won't change much for me. I'll still be playing deathmatch every game. Me too, buddy. You and me. You and
Us as well. Us as well.
We'll see you in there. This BowSorc thing. So we went up against this one pre-made that had a BowSorc like that I was just describing. Plus they had just like a standard typical MagSorc on the team.
Boy. Still have nightmares about it.
Yeah, it was a rough one. And they both the BowSorc and the MagSorc both were using the Negate ultimate, and they would stagger them. So there's basically just never not a Negate on the ground. And I was on my MagPro healer, which is usually unstoppable, but they were just shutting us down, man. With that BowSorc playing like I was just describing, with all that CC just making things really, really difficult for us. Plus, we're just getting Negate after Negate after Negate dropped on top of us. Like, we just could not play the game, man. It was extremely effective. And that's really like what makes me want to make a BowSorc, because it just seemed really good.
I just have imagined that's got to be the closest we've ever felt to being on the other side of despair.
Yeah. That BowSorc plus MagSorc, they just made a really great pair.
Yeah.
It was really good. And I don't even remember what the other 2 were. They're probably like a Dragon Knight and a Templar or something.
We didn't get to see them. We just just shut down the whole time.
Yeah. But I've been trying to come up with some ideas for a BowSorc build, but I haven't really come up with anything amazing. So if anyone listening has any ideas, scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. What's a good BowSorc build? Let me know. Otherwise, I've just been continuing my journey of becoming a MagBlade Jedi, and I feel like I've been making some progress in that regard. I feel like I've reached a level of comfort with my MagBlade that I did not think was possible. I did not think that I would be like looking at my character select screen, thinking I want to do some BGs, and the MagBlade is the comfortable choice. It's that I don't think that has ever been the case for me. And, you know, like I've been saying for the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes, like this is my main from way back, and PvP has always been kind of, he sits on the sideline for that, you know, but now he's like right in the spotlight, and he's kind of, I don't know if I'm allowed to even call him my main in PvP yet or not, but I feel like I definitely have been.
He's getting closer
him.
By the day.
They really do have all the tools they need to be successful. It's just a matter of learning how to use them, and that is the hard part. It's a difficult class to get the hang of, but it makes it all the more satisfying when you do find that groove. And his performance, like the results that he gets, I wouldn't even say it's like good for a MagBlade. I would say it's just like good. You know, it's just like good for any class.
Yeah. Yeah, you can kind of you've taken the training wheels off.
yeah. And even like in some pre-mades, because I feel like that would be like the real environment where he would struggle the most, is like in like some sweaty pre-mades. But we've done a few of those even, and he's done fine.
Yep, very much so.
What I really like about it is kind of being the healer. I was streaming in Discord the other day, and I think it was CPU that made a comment about how, like, if I see a teammate of mine struggling, you know, as a Nightblade, I can just bail anytime I want, right? So I'll stick around long enough. I'll just kind of do what I can while I can, and then when it's going south, I'm just like, see you, buddy. I'm sorry, I just got to bounce, you know. But you know, if you just get to that point where like, well, there's no saving this person, then you can just kind of nope out of there, and you don't have to die with them. So I do like that about it, kind of that whole healing from the shadows. That's something I've been sort of thinking about, is like, what does a MagBlade bring to a Battlegrounds team that, say, like a BowSorc doesn't bring? Because I feel like that's your competition. You're a ranged Magicka build with ranged execute power and some off heals. So what is it that you're bringing to the table that a Sorc doesn't bring? And I think the answer there really just is invisibility. Like, otherwise, I think Sorc brings everything that a MagBlade brings except invisibility, and that really is the main thing. And I know I've talked a lot about how, like, using invisibility too much kind of puts your team at a disadvantage. It forces them to fight outnumbered and that sort of thing. I think that is the case if you're not playing in a team-minded sort of way. But man, I got to admit, I have started using stealth a lot more than I was initially. But I'm figuring out how to use it in ways that benefits my team, and actually, it's not making them fight outnumbered. I'm not by myself. I'm still in the mix, and I'm still very much contributing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the healing from the shadows thing, I think, is like really the key. Is like, the thing is, you can pop out and heal somebody with some massive heals, really pull them out of death's grasp, and then disappear, reposition, and start helping them again, right? So most of the time, you're not even on the enemy's radar. Like, if they're trying to figure out like where the heals are coming from, they're not even really able to spot you. And even if they are, you're in a different spot by the time they even realize it, you know. And plus, your skill animations, like that Shrewd Offering burst heal that I've been gushing so much about, it's not an obvious animation at all. So even if you're like standing right in front of someone spamming it, oftentimes I find that it doesn't register to them that I'm the healer. So I find I don't get focused all that much, and even when I do, as a Nightblade, you can just slip right away.
Well, in one situation I'll even bring up just with playing with you, you know, in Battlegrounds, is there's been multiple times where, you know, as you said, you throw out some crazy strong heals, but I'll have somebody hitting on me, and they'll bringing me down, and you'll bring me back from death. And so they'll kind of go off of me. You know, they've got me pressured, my resources are low, and you're healing me back up. They'll go off of me, focus you, or at least try to go after you, and then you stealth out, then they lose sight of you, and it's allowed me that perfect amount of time. I can reassess, I got my resources back up, and I can go on the offensive right back at them because now they're focusing you. And then, boom, then you pop right out of stealth, and now you're helping me take them down. It is really, it's a nice little combo.
I've noticed that too. There are these mind games you can play with stealth because so many players, if they see a Nightblade popping in and out of stealth, they cannot resist. They have to go after you. They're going to try to pull you out of stealth. And I've seen before, like I've been in a match where like I'm separated from my team and I'll see one of my teammates run across and they have an entire enemy team on their tail. So like I'll run across their path and cloak and like make sure they can see me cloak, and sure enough, at least one or two of them will peel off and start chasing me instead. And now my teammate has a fighting chance. Also, like, one of the big downsides of using stealth is now you're not a body block for your teammates. So if you're just very mindful and very team focused in your gameplay, just take notice of when your teammates are in trouble, when they need a body block, and then jump out of stealth, jump in there in front of them while you're healing them. I think if you're kind of keeping those things in mind and really trying to do what needs to be done moment to moment, no one's going to complain about you using stealth. It actually is a beneficial thing if you're using it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Reminder of the build, it hasn't changed since the last episode. It's Heartland Conqueror, War Maiden on the front bar with a sharpened fire staff, a powered Maelstrom Resto on the back bar, that amazing Sithis helmet, and one-piece Vulcan Scoria. It's 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy, 4 well-fitted, 3 divines, tri-stack glyphs on all 7 pieces. The jewelry is 1 arcane, 2 swift, damage glyphs on all 3 pieces. The Atronach Mundus for extra recovery. Sugar Skulls is the food, spell power potions, and all attribute points into Magicka, which gets me like around 35k max Magicka. And my health is like just shy of 29k, which is actually a pretty comfortable amount with that Sithis helmet. It really makes it feel pretty comfortable. What else did I have to say here? Let me look at my notes here. Oh, a couple other tips that I wanted to mention is so Merciless Resolve. That's your main burst attack. Now take it from an old school PvE MagBlade main. I know how it is when that Merciless Resolve proc is ready. It's like reflex. You have to fire it immediately, right? Well, to me, like I'm so used to doing a DPS rotation on a boss. And the whole goal is to fire as many of those Merciless bow procs as you possibly can to get maximum DPS. So my brain is just trained. Like when I hear that sound effect, when that proc is ready, fire it right away. And it's so hard to break that in PvP, or it was for me. Like I feel like, okay, I have this thing ready. I need to fire it as soon as I can. And what you'll find, of course, is that often if that's how you're thinking of it, you're going to waste that bow proc. You really need to be patient. And they actually give you a really great incentive to hold on to that, because you basically have a free Juliano's 5-piece bonus as long as you have those 5 stacks. As long as you don't fire that Merciless bow proc, you have an extra 300 spell damage for the rest of your attacks to benefit from. So I'm just been trying to keep that in mind and be like, it's a good thing if I don't fire this thing. Like keep it as long as you possibly can. Another thing is when I am ready to fire it at someone, I've found that using heavy attacks to help me help with the timing has helped quite a bit. So what I do is I'll start charging up a heavy attack with the intention to weave that into my Merciless proc. And what you can do is you can use the time of charging up that heavy attack, because the biggest problem is your attacks get dodged all the time, right? And so that's what we're trying to avoid. So I'm charging up that heavy attack, kind of waiting for them to roll dodge, because oftentimes they will roll dodge within that span of time. And then as soon as they do a roll dodge and complete it, then I release the heavy attack and weave that into the Merciless. And if they never do a roll dodge within that entire time, then just charge the heavy attack all the way up. Well, it's just even more damage then, it's just let it charge all the way. And then weave it in. But if they do a dodge within that time, then release it early as soon as that dodge is done, and it'll almost be guaranteed to hit. So that's kind of how I've been using heavy attacks to help me time that a little bit better, and that helps quite a bit. And then another thing, I'll just mention that Shrewd Offering, that burst heal ability that is just so amazing. Now, shout out to Dr. Professor. because he's the one that really kind of pointed this out to me. Like, I had seen that buff before, but it hadn't really registered like just how powerful that is. So he kind of brought that to my attention, and I really do feel like that was the pivot point for me, where I was like, you know what, I'm going to start maining MagBlade. It really just kind of started right then. One last thing I'll say about the MagBlade here is the hate is real. I have never received so many hate whispers as what I've played on this dude. Oh my gosh. From enemies and teammates alike. And man, that's the thing. That's the worst thing is like, I make a concerted effort to be a team player because I know what it's like to have Nightblades that abandon the team. And I'm like trying my hardest to like play with the team and help the team as much as I can. But guaranteed, if there's someone on the team who's not doing so well, they're going to blame it on the Nightblade. Every time.
It's all the Nightblade's fault.
Oh, you look at the team, you look at the scoreboard, you see that someone on your team is a Nightblade. Oh, it had to have been their fault. Must have been. And enemies, of course. I mean, any victory you have over an enemy, they're not happy about it. And believe me, I understand. I've been on the other side of it. I do not enjoy fighting other Nightblades at all. Even as a Nightblade, I get sick of Nightblades.
There's a reason when you see a player go into stealth, you have, there's a little part of you, it's like, oh, I got to try to kill that character.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. So yeah, just so many hate whispers like I've never gotten before. It's pretty hilarious. Anyway, that's all I have to say about the Nightblade. Davius, what do you got for us, man? What have you been doing?
So, kind of very similar to you, yet there are some strong differences in that I have been playing on my StamCro. I can't not play on my StamCro. I've talked about him a whole bunch. I'm not even going to dive into the build just because I feel like I've talked about him on past episodes so much. But I can really relate to kind of what you're saying.
I hate it when people do that, when they talk about the same build 3 episodes in a row.
I mean, but I really have to say I can 100% relate to what you're saying about with my StamCro and having a character that I just log into all the time that I never really expected to be kind of the PvP character that I'm always logging in. My StamCro's been, he's been on the shelf for a long time, and I didn't really neglected. I didn't really plan StamCro to be a character, but that build is just, I keep waiting for the floor to fall out.
Remind us what the sets are again.
It's 5-piece Swamp Raider, 5-piece Plague Break, and then I do the Wild Hunt, and then back bar Vatishran 2-hander to ramp up the damage, and it just, it's just working right now. The engine behind the build is the spammable that I use. Acid Spray, and that is really with the Swamp Raider buff and the Plague Break and it throwing out the AoE.
And Plague Break has I think a 1 second cooldown, so you can spam that Acid Spray into a group over and over again, and basically within 4 seconds everyone has it on them.
Yeah, and I feel like you could back me up on this, man. I'll throw the Acid Spray and some line attacks into a group, and it just starts eating away on them. And then
it's kind of crazy how those health bars just start dropping right away. And I'm like, man, our team is doing a lot of damage. Oh, actually, our other 2 teammates are way over there. It's just Davius doing that.
So I can very much relate to kind of, that's rare for us to kind of just solo in on one character for this amount of time. And so because of that, I've been on the StamCro a whole bunch. And so I've really tried to swap over. And so really the character that I'm actually going to talk about is my MagPlar, Bard of Sovngarde, one of my 3 MagPlars, or one of my 3 Templars, two MagPlars. But the build on this character is, I'm only going to mention part of it because it's really, I don't even really want to talk so much about the build, but it's 5-piece War Maiden, a Wild Hunt, back bar, Maelstrom Resto, and then I have a trainee. And really, I'm kind of just leaving out the additional 5-piece set because I haven't even really zoned in on the additional 5-piece set because I really think that that's not necessarily the important part of what's been going on. And so, I've been on my StamCro, very aggressive, very damage focused, like we just said, he's throwing the damage out there. And so I started playing this character, and man, I was just hitting a brick wall. It just wasn't working, and I was struggling, and the numbers were bad, and I was just trying to figure it out, kept changing the sets around. I was like, well, maybe it's the build's not working out. And really, I did a match with you, and you, in a nice way, but you kind of called me out. You're kind of like, man, you're playing really aggressive with the MagPlar. And, it kind of led to this great conversation, and it kind of made me realize that I was playing the MagPlar like I was on my StamCro. I was going full aggressive, full damage, getting into the fights. And it really kind of made me, kind of check myself in the sense that the best way to play this type of MagPlar, and really I would say most MagPlars and even most Magicka classes, is to kind of go support first. And we kind of talked through it, and I really kind of started thinking through that. And so I started doing a bunch of BGs after we played that night. And it really just completely transformed the results I was getting with this character. Instead of diving into a fight or worrying about damage or worrying about getting kills, it was focus on the team, get the support up, make sure the team is looking good health-wise. And when you see an opportunity, seize it. Go in there and then lay on your jabs with the power of the light and the abilities that you have that can deal heavy damage. And it just completely transformed the results of this character. And I just thought it was a really cool situation because the sets really didn't matter. It was just completely the play style. And it was unique for me because, most of my characters are very either 100% damage, or even my support character, Davius or Never Ending Nord, are almost 100% support. And so when I was playing this character that wasn't really dedicated to support, I was kind of had this mindset of, okay, I got to go damage, and really just changing the mindset around to how I played it and kind of stay on my back bar, support bar, heal up. The kill counts went up, the deaths went down, the damage total went up, just because I was seizing opportunities of staying alive more, helping out the team. It really kind of was just a complete 180 from the results.
Isn't it amazing how focusing more on team support and defense actually increases your kill counts?
Yeah, it completely caught me off guard until, kind of started getting in a little bit of the hang of it.
Yeah, and I think you're right about like most Magicka builds. I would say even like a Dragon Knight, I feel like I play that way. Like you have that support capability. And like my MagBlade, for example, is totally set up to be an offensive character. His purpose, really, in my mind, is to get kills. But even so, I'm probably at least 75% of the time I'm actually playing defensively and helping support my team. And I think that is absolutely the way to do it. Any Magicka spec, you're a healer first, deal with it, and just take the kills as they come.
Well, and you're exactly right that when you kind of switch to that play style, you will see your damage numbers go up and your kill counts go up. It's because you're bringing your deaths down, you're supporting your team's helping you lay damage on a team.
It reciprocates. You support your team and they can support you in return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it really was just a complete turnaround of the character. And then I started seeing the results and I'm actually pretty excited to dive in with this character, with War Maiden. It does the 600 buff to magic damage. And so I've really tried to, with a lot of my characters, I really like to zero in on the strategy and the focus. And so obviously War Maiden's great for a Templar because MagPlar specifically, because almost all their damage is magic damage. And so they're getting that 600 buff. And so I really wanted this other 5-piece set. There's a couple sets out there you can just get extra spell damage or things like that. But I was really wanting something to feed off that War Maiden buff. And so that War Maiden buff to apply to the additional set. And so we kind of started looking through sets. I will mention that yes, I know that Dark Convergence does magic damage, but no. Over my dead body will I use that set. I already used Plague Break, but I will not drop as low as Dark Convergence. But the set that we actually You actually were the one that found it, but my old favorite, Cold Harbor's favorite.
Cold Harbor's favorite. You already had a gold set in the bank.
I already had the gold set from when Davius used to wear it way back in the day. The GuarPlar. Pulled it out of the bank.
The GuarPlar is back.
The GuarPlar,
different plar,
different plar, but the GuarPlar is back, and so I'm actually really excited to throw this on there. I think it'll probably be more fun than effective, but I was kind of playing around with the numbers, and with that War Maiden doing a buff on that set and getting the magic damage up, I think I got it up to where Honor, when he explodes, it was like 15,000 damage over 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And then the heal comes out to even stronger than that. So I think it has opportunity to where it could probably be pretty good, because it's a strong heal, and when it does hit for damage, I think it could be pretty high damage. So I'm excited to test that out going forward and see if that set sticks. I think that'd be really cool.
Dr. Professor says, good old Honor. Yeah, I've just seen that little Guar.
He's great.
I don't really have, like I said, the MagBlade is basically all I've been playing with. I've logged in with my MagCro a couple of times to spare, and that's still a really great build. Healing Mage and Ken Marcher is just a really great 5-piece setup to put on a MagCro healer. I've already talked about it quite a bit, so I don't think I need to dig into it again. But it's fun.
Kind of funny right now, because we're both in this mode where it's like I'm logging in with my StamCro, you're logging in with your MagBlade, and then we kind of have to be like, well, we should probably swap to one of our other characters. We kind of have to force ourselves. We don't even really want to, but we're like, we probably should. We should probably swap to something else.
Have all these other characters.
I guess.
Yeah. So, but I think look forward to, in future episodes, probably the next episode or two, I'm going to be talking about a BowSorc. I definitely am going to figure something out for a BowSorc, because that just seems like a lot of fun. I want to do that.
And with the when this episode, the day this episode comes out, we're probably going to be learning some things, and so at least about the new stuff coming out, and so maybe that'll spark up some of the other.
It might dig up some creativity out of the back of my brain.
There we go.
Emails and shout outs. Davies, I have a surprise. We have an email.
Don't you say it.
We have an email.
Say it.
It actually was sent in almost a month ago, and I just didn't catch it until today, actually, and I noticed
You don't even check them anymore. That's what it's gotten to. You're not even checking.
I check. I missed it. I missed this one. Jay Cowell has a very good question. He asks, what's your favorite thing to put on a sandwich? Thanks, guys. Love the show. Thanks, Jay Cowell.
Ooh.
Favorite. So he says favorite thing. All
right. Now this episode's getting real. All right.
Now it's time
to get real.
He says favorite thing, singular thing. So what's your one single favorite thing to put on a sandwich?
Okay, here we go. I've got some logic coming to me on this.
All right,
so your sandwich is going to have some sort of meat on it.
Sure.
Let's just agree to that.
Sure.
And this is risky of me to say, because I feel like some people are going to turn on me for this.
Oh no.
And so let's just prep.
People have strong opinions about food.
So here's the thing. Your sandwich is going to have some sort of meat on it. The part that I'm going to say that takes a sandwich to the next level, and oh boy, I can already sense the haters. I'm going to say some nice crisp lettuce. I said it.
Okay.
I think it changes the sandwich. When you add that crisp and a little bit of crunch, I'm just assuming your sandwich is going to have some meat on there. I don't want no bread and just lettuce, all right? I'm just assuming, safe bet, you're going to have some meat on this sandwich. But that crisp lettuce, I think, is going to take that sandwich to the next level.
I wasn't really thinking about lettuce, but I can see your point if it's actually like a nice, fresh, crisp, like cold little leaf of lettuce. So put that little crunch in there.
Yeah.
I like it. Crisp. So that's your favorite thing. Man, okay. What's my favorite thing? You know what I really like in a sandwich? And this is actually a recent development for me. I've never liked pickles, but
whoa, okay.
I recently have started enjoying, kind of like the lettuce, I like it to be like a nice, fresh, cold, crispy pickle but just one single pickle slice in the middle of the sandwich. I don't want it to be all pickly in there. Just like that one little pickle treat in the middle there. I like that.
I got an important question for you. Sour or sweet pickle?
I guess I never really... It's just whatever they got, you know. I go to a deli.
Ooh, it's got to be a sweet pickle for me. I don't want none of that sour. I need a sweet pickle. Grizzly Khan gets it. That bread and butter pickle. Ooh, that is where it is at.
I guess I've never really thought to differentiate it. Just, you know, usually you go to a deli, you don't have a choice. You just give me a pickle, please. You know, but we're gonna go with that leaf of lettuce and one single pickle. That's our favorite thing. What a
terrible sandwich we've created.
Well, you know, it's assumed there's other stuff on the sandwich, but it's just which one of those things are our favorite. You know?
Yeah, I think
I feel like cheese is an easy go-to, but honestly, I feel like I don't often like distinctly identify the cheese when I take a bite. You know, it's like it adds to the overall flavor, of course, but it's not like I take a bite and I'm like, oh yeah, that cheese.
Yeah, you know, well, you just need a basic piece of cheddar. You can get some fancy cheeses, and I'll agree they'll be nice, but that basic cheddar, it's going to do the job. It'll get you through.
Grizzly Khan says cheese is his favorite. Dr. Professor says potato chips. Now that's an interesting one. I haven't done that in a long time, but when I was a wee sparrowhawk, I always would put potato chips on my sandwich, and that was a good time, certainly. Scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. What do you like to put on your sandwiches? Or anything else you'd like to email us? Scrollingpodcast@gmail.com if you want to ask us a question or make any suggestions for the show or just say hello or ask us food-related questions. Really, anything goes as long as you're nice. Shout out to Grizzly Khan. Grizzly Khan asked us a question in the Discord the other day that I thought would make a good thing to answer here on the show. Grizzly asked, why is it that MagSorcs have so much finishing power compared to other classes? I know we've talked a lot about how MagSorcs are great executioners in BGs, and that's kind of the thing that they excel at, but we never really talked about exactly why that is, but really the reason is just one ability, which is their execute ability, which is called Mage's Wrath or Endless Fury, whichever morph. Both morphs are good.
Yep.
But it's a unique execute because it has a 4-second window. You can cast it on someone like before they're in execute range. And then anytime within 4 seconds, if they fall into execute range, it instantly explodes and deals that execute damage.
Which is really the strategy you want to do behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about getting that on them before they're in execute range, because everyone else that has an execute that's not a Sorc, the whole problem is you have to hit your target with it while they're in execute range. And the thing is, against a decent player, they know they're in trouble in that situation, so they start going full panic mode, full defense. They're spamming roll dodge. The healer is healing them. You're actually going to have a pretty difficult time landing an execute before they heal up out of execute range, right? Whereas with a Sorc, there's no reaction time. The moment they dip their pinky toe into that execute range, pop, they're dead.
Yep. 100% hit.
Yeah. So that's why, basically, that 4-second window is what makes it possible.
Well, and I would even say, too, on top of it, is when you throw that on there and that sticks to them, you're also freed up to throw other burst damage into it, whereas others, when they're in execute range, the ability you're using is the execute. Sorcs stick that on there, and then now they're hitting you with another ability. The execute pops, they hit you with an ability. And so it just builds up so much.
It's weird. They actually hit you with the execute early in the combo. Like the typical combo is hit them with Haunting Curse, then hit them with execute right after that, then do a spammable, then toss a frags at them, and then frags will should hit right about the same time that curse explodes, which will put them into execute range, which will make Mage's Wrath pop, and that's death right there. Or even if they miss all those attacks, as long as they get that Mage's Wrath on them and somebody else can put them into execute range and the Sorc will get that kill, even if they're not paying attention. And you see a lot of Sorcs do that. They'll just go around spamming Mage's Wrath on every single person that they see and then streak away, and they'll get a kill or two. Yeah. So thanks, Grizz, for the question. Also, another shout out to Grizzly Con for helping our buddy Dr. Professor out. As we've mentioned, Dr. Professor is fairly new to the PCNA server, and Grizzly has really gone above and beyond getting Dr. Professor up to speed and getting his crafting and everything all leveled up and everything like that. So thanks, Grizz, for being a good goon, man. And speaking of Dr. Professor, shout out to Dr. Professor. Why not?
Shout out to Dr. Professor.
He was first in the Discord chat today when we started recording.
He beat me. Of course, both Grizz and Dr. Professor beat me. So
and me too. I did too.
Well, yes, of course.
Thanks both of you guys, Dr. Professor and Grizzly Con, for being here in the chat while we record. Always appreciated, fellas.
Everybody gets their shout out Grizzly Con t-shirts today. Everybody gets one.
We're gonna have a shout out to Grizzly Con t-shirt with the Ric Flair woo picture on the front, and everyone's going to know exactly what that means when they see you wearing it out on the street. Any other shout outs?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm sure they're out there, but
shout out to all the goons out there.
Yeah, shout out goons. There you go.
Speaking of, we do have a guild. It's called Stoons Goons. We are the best named guild on PCNA. It is also the official guild of the Scrollin' Podcast. If you'd like to be a member, hit us up at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. We'll send you an invite. If your guild list is full, you already have 5 guilds and you don't want to drop any of them, that's okay. Send us an email anyway and we can get you into our Discord, which is really where the action's at. If we're being honest, that's where most of our discussions happen, and when we're kind of organizing groups and doing that sort of thing, most of that happens in the Discord. It's a pretty cool community. We have some cool people in there. Highly recommend it. scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. Dr. Professor says, shout out to Ket for spreading the good word of the MagBlade. Thank you, Dr. Professor.
Well, now, hold on. Let's not tout these night blades too much, all right? It's getting a little
shout out to me. You know, it does feel pretty good to get a shout out.
It's got a nice ring to it.
I didn't realize how good this felt. Man, why don't you get a taste? I think that's it. Anything else, Davius?
I think that's it.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you next time.